All right, let's go. Once again, I would like to welcome everyone to this amazing webinar, which we tag AI in the African economy, a webinar hosted by Zummit Africa. And my name is Valentine Eneda. I'm a junior data scientist at Zummit Africa. I'm really excited to be here. Ooh, so excited. Welcome everyone. Please, if you're joining in, please just type in where you're connecting with us from, and we'll just get started today. So I'm sure we've really heard the word AI, and AI is actually a big term now, right? Everything we use today has to do with AI, everything we do is AI. But do we really understand what AI means? Like that terminology, AI, what does that mean? So AI is just the short form of artificial intelligence. And so from my own perspective, right, I would define AI as the study of intelligent agents. Just simply that, it's just as simple as that. Various applications of AI today has to be the algorithm Netflix uses to recommend movies to us, facial recognition, voice recognition, autonomous driving vehicles. Those are basically applications of AI today. Now, some people actually see AI as a threat to their jobs, to their lives, and to their family. And while some other people see it as an ally for increasing comfort in their homes, improving their work, and also increasing automation in various activities. Well, I hope at the end of this session, your perception of what AI is going to be at the positive. Now, there's a book, AI Superpowers, written by Kai-Fu Lee. That book basically talks about how China became the top users of AI in the world. Now, on the 15th of March 2016, right, Google's DeepMind AlphaGo beat Lee Sedol, a Go player in China, to win $1 million, and he actually won him 4 times in a 5-game match. That was actually what changed the narrative of China today. And as you can see, and as you know, China has been one of the leading users of AI in the world. So that's actually like really amazing, right? Really amazing. So I'll also be talking about DALL-E 2. So on April 6, 2022, DALL-E 2 broke the internet. So DALL-E 2, what's really DALL-E 2, right? So DALL-E 2 is an open AI platform that takes in very simple text and then create photorealistic images of that text that's never been seen on the internet. So imagine seeing a picture of a monkey doing a slam dunk, or seeing Davido with a Grammy, or seeing Lionel Messi on a Real Madrid shirt. That's really impossible, right? So yeah, those are actually one of the applications of AI. I want you to know that AI is here to stay, and it's really going to change our perception and the whole narrative, right? Our goal here at Zummit Africa, our biggest goal has been to actually democratize AI in Africa. And that is why we are here. That is why we are connecting with each other. Because together, if we hold hands, we will democratize AI in Africa. Thank you so much. Welcome today. And without much further ado, I'll be introducing our first speaker today, Mr. Matthew Patrick. He's a strategic thinker, a problem solver. He's also the co-founder of Zummit UK. And he's also a management consultant with experience in solving business problems with technology. So without much further ado, good afternoon, Mr. Matthew. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon. Thanks, Valentine, and thank you for having me. Thank you to everyone who's jumped on to listen to this presentation today. I am confident that you will all learn something about AI and artificial intelligence in the African context. So really excited to be here, and really excited to share what we have for you today. Brilliant. So I'm going to talk about the implementation of AI in the African economy. We're going to cover a couple of topics: the why, the rich in resources, the opportunity and the opportunity cost, the industries which AI will be implemented, and we will see the most effect with that implementation, and then overall looking at artificial intelligence in Africa as a whole. So yeah, so obviously the point of the conversation today and the webinar and the session today is to really understand the effect of artificial intelligence on the African economy. A bit of a backstory on myself. I am based in the UK, but my heritage is originally from Zimbabwe, and I grew up most of my life in South Africa. So we've got an interesting sort of array of individuals on the call, some based in more Northern Africa. A lot of my heritage is in Southern Africa. So we can really bring some diversity in the thinking. So why is artificial intelligence important? Well, Valentine gave a really sort of beautiful introduction into artificial intelligence with an array of examples. But essentially, for the likes of Africa being a third world continent, the artificial intelligence would really help combat poverty, joblessness, and a whole host of other socio and economic challenges. If we see development in this space, it could change the lives of locals, from farmers to medical workers, as well as completely revolutionizing private and public sector, which we'll get into later. Unfortunately, though, it's a bit of a balancing act for the African economy. As you can imagine, with a lack of infrastructure, we might see the implementation of artificial intelligence being really, really difficult. And so it's a tough one, because the African continent has, for a while, or since at least I've known it to be, has been oppressed and exploited. We have cheap labor, we have an unbelievable amount of resources, and so with the lack of infrastructural development, organizational processes, and the lack of funds being injected into the economy, it really is something that would be quite difficult to implement across the board. The continent has always been a lagging region with regards to technological infrastructure. However, I have seen in the last couple of years, with the major booms in a lot of unicorns, especially out of Nigeria and South Africa following suit, the technological development, a lot of sort of development in the startup culture. So it is sort of changing slightly. However, the overall global perceived value of Africa is that it's third world, and not much happens besides being exploited for its resources and cheap labor. And essentially the problem is, because of the outdated systems that currently exist there in the continent, people may struggle in adopting technology at the scale that we need it to go at. So yes, I'm sure, as you're all aware, Africa is ripe in resources, and it's partly why first world countries and continents have really exploited the nation for what it has. Africa is home to some of 30% of the world's mineral reserves, 8% of the world's natural gas, and 12% of the world's oil reserves. The continent has 40% of the world's gold and up to 90% of its chromium and platinum. So the opportunity is unbelievable. And Africa as a continent has the ability to turn itself into a powerhouse, competing with the likes of China, the US, and Europe. But essentially, we need people on the ground in Africa. We need the funds, we need the resources, and that's something that I've seen, at least, that's been struggled, or it's been difficult to pull together. So yes, talking back to South Africa, obviously, I touched on the heritage of sort of my childhood growing up in South Africa, and I wanted to touch on the importance of why I think it's quite an interesting topic. But essentially, South Africa's produced over 400 billion GDP for 2021 for the African economy, and is the highest GDP in comparison to Egypt at 402 billion. Tourism alone generated 130 billion in 2018, with a contribution of 4.5% of total employment in Southern Africa. Tourism and mining, construction, and technological development are all areas within the economy where artificial intelligence would exponentially improve the economy. So yes, essentially, we could look at the tourism industry, and we could look at how artificial intelligence could empower that industry, and industries alike in other parts of Africa where, you know, the GDP could be improved. We could look at more global investments. We could look at more tourism, you know, attracting people and making Africa as a continent more attractive from external parties. Yes, Zimbabwe, my beloved Zimbabwe. So a lot of my family were born and raised in Zimbabwe. We had farms out in Shinoya. If anyone knows Zimbabwe, you'll know that's just outside of Harare. And yes, a lot of my heritage is built, you know, in the Zimbabwean culture and with the people. And I've been back a couple of times, and I must say it is a beautiful country. Unfortunately, though, as many would know the story of Zimbabwe, it was once one of the richest countries in Africa in agriculture, tobacco, and infrastructure. However, what was lost and once a thriving economy has now fallen to the wayside. There is a lack of knowledge and education in the country, and the land has now been left full of resources without the knowledge to farm and cannot be capitalized. So essentially, by incorporating artificial intelligence, we could automate processes that could sort of be pivotal for the development of Zimbabwe and the needs in order to empower farmers and assist them in utilizing their land. You know, to touch on that in a little bit more detail, I think over the last 20 to 30 years, it's been common knowledge that there's an abundance of land and farmers just don't know what to do with the land. They've never really been educated properly on how to understand soil, how to farm soil, how to make the soil you know, fertile for produce. And essentially, you know, with the use of education and artificial intelligence, we could completely change the Zimbabwean economy, just in that one example. But yes, so that leads on to discuss the opportunity. And by 2030, artificial intelligence will add 15 trillion to the global GDP, with 6.6 trillion projected to be from increased productivity and 9.1 trillion from consumption effects. Furthermore, augmentation, which allows people and AI to work together to enhance performance, will create 2.9 trillion of business value and 6.2 billion of worker productivity globally. So there's a huge opportunity, not just from a GDP point of view, not just from a monetary point of view, but from a people point of view as well. The amount of jobs that could be opened up, the amount of opportunities that could be opened up, you know, are sort of privy to the development of Africa as a continent. And to sort of expand on that, there are 10 key enabling technologies that will drive Africa's digital economy, including cybersecurity, cloud computing, big data analytics, blockchain, and the Internet of Things, 3D printing, biotechnology, robotics, energy storage, and obviously AI. AI, however, in particular, presents countless avenues for both public and private sectors to optimize solutions to the most crucial problems facing the continent today, especially for struggling industries. However, there is an opportunity cost, as you can imagine. With 30% of the world's resources being sourced from Africa, it begs to ask a number of important questions. The first being, does the world want Africa to become more technologically advanced? It's a really, really important question, one that I've sat with for many years asking myself. The second question is, how does Africa become more technologically advanced? You know, it's easy to say, you know, we can have people on the ground doing the work, but if we haven't got support from the core of the economy or the core of the continent, then, you know, are we really fighting a losing battle? And the third and final question, is there a global mandate for investment opportunities within the African continent? One thing I became aware of a couple of years ago is the lack of access to funds offshore. So yes, there is internal investment. There are guys within South Africa specifically that would invest in opportunities, but there was a lack of international investment, and that's something that Africa needs. And there's no doubt that artificial intelligence could empower farmers, improve education, further develop medical processes, empower the African continent, which is one of the most poverty-stricken continents on the planet. So, you know, you can go and do some research on artificial intelligence and see how it can completely make inefficient processes more efficient. It can empower farmers. It can make medical processes simple and not as complex. And it could really, as Valentine put it, democratize, you know, the economy and the continent itself. And yeah, further moving on to the industries, this is just a handful of industries where AI could really be sort of an empowering factor. I've included the medical industry, agricultural. I've even included crime, which I think is a very interesting element. Obviously, it'll have some technological developments as well. And then you can look at production, construction, and then as well as the public sector and our governments, which I think is a very important one as well. So yes, I've raised a couple of points with each industry, just to give you an idea of how it could empower that industry. And yes, with regards to healthcare, obviously AI could help us better understand day-to-day patterns. It could help us better understand feedback. It could automate processes. It could introduce NLP applications, and it could help us understand and classify clinical documentation. So completely streamlining the process for individuals who are sick or who need healthcare, and especially within the African continent, that is something that's very crucial, because obviously it's ripe in South Africa specifically, but also in Africa as a continent, that healthcare is one of the major factors for people getting sick, for poverty. People don't live in sort of humane areas where they firstly have access to healthcare, but secondly, they are exposed to a number of different diseases and viruses. And so this could really, really empower the African people, which I think is really, really exciting. Moving on to agriculture, which is also another important factor. Without agriculture, the country can't produce any foods. And for it being a continent that produces 30% of the world's resources or reserves, agriculture is something that firstly can feed our people, but can also encourage global investment. It can encourage import and export. So if we can produce something at a grander scale, we can export our foods to another country, therefore sort of subsidizing the GDP as well. And yes, obviously in terms of artificial intelligence, it can improve the overall harvest quality and accuracy. So they call that precision agriculture. It can detect diseases in plants, pests, and poor nutrition of farms. It can help with crop soil monitoring. It can help create agricultural robots, and obviously finally, help with intelligent spraying. So spraying the food to protect it from pesticides and making sure that it has a long life. And then, yes, moving on to crime, which I think was an interesting one that I was doing a bit more research on. Artificial intelligence essentially could help detect suspicious activities. It could help with investigating crimes, identifying suspects more rapidly, and has a specific use case in a court of law. And I think this is really important, especially being from South Africa, where crime is rife. This could be a really empowering principle, especially with the local people, keeping them safe, keeping communities safe. And with a safe community, people are more likely to do more and empower themselves. And then, yes, finally, and I think the most important factor is the economies. And obviously by incorporating artificial intelligence in any economy, you can improve decision-making processes. It can help analyze large amounts of data. It can increase inefficiencies or efficiencies and improve political infrastructure, as well as improve the governmental processes. And we all know, and I guess I'm not just speaking for myself here, that most economies could have a more improved government process, which is more empowered for the people and not just for the political parties. And yeah, moving on to manufacturing, some interesting use cases for manufacturing would be predictive maintenance, quality processes, generative design, price forecasting, and obviously robotics. So essentially, it would allow us to create processes in a multitude of industries and streamline current inefficiencies to improve that process and make everyone's life 100 times better. And I truly believe that AI in Africa will be revolutionary. Obviously, with 15.7 trillion projected to the global GDP, artificial intelligence is only just beginning to revolutionize the world, and we all want to be a part of that revolution.
Thank you so much, Mr. Matthew, for that wonderful presentation. I want to throw this to the audience. Do we have any questions, you can unmute your mic, or you can type in the inline message box as well. We really appreciate that. Okay. Okay, I'll just give a minute. All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Machi, for dissecting into the applications of AI into Africa's economy. It's really, really inspiring. I'm really, really excited by the prospects that AI intends to actually do in Africa. And so I was able to pick some sentences from you made, and one thing that was particular to me was the fact that there are so many opportunities and companies that could leverage AI in Africa. But the thing is, okay, sorry, I just want to confirm the question in the text box. Okay, so someone has a question. Hilary asks, how are these applications Africa specific? Aren't the issues discussed global in nature? Sorry, I didn't get a question. Hi, Mr. Hilary, can you unmute your mic and ask the question?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, good day.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, so thanks a lot for the presentation. So I think I probably missed something. So my question is that so the issues and the and the challenges discussed in this presentation, are these like Africa specific challenges, or because I feel that the challenges, I mean the problems discussed, these are of a global nature, like the use of AI for crime,
Yes.
the usage of AI, I mean, like the application of AI to agriculture or healthcare. These are all issues which are global in nature. Like, these issues are there everywhere, not only in Africa, right? So I just want to understand, like, what is like, why are we calling this like specific to Africa only? So that's my question.
So yeah, thank you for the question. I think
Okay.
you're right. I think obviously a lot of these use cases are relevant on a global scale. I think with regards to Africa, there are some use cases which are specific just to Africa. For example, if you're in a country that produces a lot of agricultural produce, in some countries in the world that don't produce agricultural produce, then that would be only relevant to Africa. But yes, I think in regards to your question, and I don't want to put countries and continents in boxes, but essentially there are correlating parts of the world that are in a similar boat to Africa with regards to the development of artificial intelligence. So I certainly don't want anyone to feel as though we're only focusing on Africa here. However, the use cases are relevant globally. So you can see development obviously in India, in the UK, in the US, in Asia, and so forth. But the use cases will vary depending on what specific problems that country faces. And yes, I do believe crime is probably something that exists globally. But again, I go back to the point on agriculture, which I think might only be relevant to certain parts of the world that produce different types of foods and wheats and grains and so forth.
Okay. Yeah, got your point. Thank you. Thanks for the answer.
Right, thank you, Mr. March. We have two more questions. And so from Calibo, he says, what are your thoughts on which of the applications of AI will start first? So which of the applications of AI will actually be very practical in Africa?
Honestly, I think the most important and most practical application would be something involving education. I feel like, and I'm speaking on behalf of South Africa, but I think maybe Africa as a continent, even globally. But I feel as though there's a lack of education in the world. And that is really the fundamental core of anything, is education. So improving processes and implementing artificial intelligence in processes that gives people access firstly to education and empowers them to have, the education that they need in order to become who they want to become. With the lack of education, people can't be who, they're destined to be. And I do feel, especially with my experience in South Africa, that the focus was really not on education. And I feel that's the core of any economy, is its people, is the livelihood of the children. And in order to empower them, we need to give them practical applications where they can be utilized and they can empower themselves, to help all of us, change and shape the world that we want to see. So I really believe education is the first application in that case.
All right, thank you, Mr. Matthew. So we have a couple more questions for you. Bumi Liu says, what African-specific challenges can we expect with the rapid adoption of AI?
Just sorry, Valentine, I just want to catch that question. What was the question?
She said, what African-specific challenges can we expect with the rapid adoption of AI?
I think the lack of capital and resources and the lack of support. The big question I asked, I think in one of the slides, was do we have global mandate, for this kind of development? Do people want to see Africa develop in the technological world? We've seen pockets of it, for example, Nigeria and South Africa in some cases. But I think it's really about changing the narrative. When people think of Africa, they think of poverty, they think of barren landscapes, and that's not the case. I've met some really intelligent people in Nigeria and South Africa, in Zimbabwe, and I think it's about changing the global perspective of what Africa can do for the world, instead of just being exploited for cheap labor and an abundance of resources.
All right, thank you, Mr. Matthew. Just a couple more questions, I think. So we'll not be taking more questions because of time. From Juwon Yaku, he says, does AI tend to solve the problem of unemployment in Africa? If so, how?
Okay, that's a really, really good question. The only way I can see it really empowering unemployment, or at least improving unemployment, and I mean, I'm speaking just from memory, I think South Africa alone was at a 60% unemployment rate, or just under 60% the last time I remember doing the research. The only way that it can really be improved is in the processes. So there are processes in South Africa specifically that are just inefficient. When you're looking for a job, people don't get back to you, they don't respond. The interview process could be, 7 steps, or you might just get lost. Your CV could get lost in that process itself. They might even never get back to you. And I think there's a lack of, firstly, processes, and there's a lack of infrastructure, technological infrastructure, to make it easier for an individual to apply for a job. And I know, I've spoken to a lot of friends out in South Africa, Black, white, Asian, and they all tell me that getting jobs in South Africa is not easy. And I can understand the process is really not empowering for the individual. It's empowering for the corporates. So I think artificial intelligence in the process element of that application would really empower firstly the people, giving them better opportunities, giving them better scope of how that process works, and not just leaving them on the wayside. There's so many stories that I come across where people haven't been able to find a job for almost a year. And I just think it's really sad that we aren't doing more as an economy or as a country to empower the very people that help build the economy and help build the infrastructure. So it definitely has to be the processes. The processes are extremely inefficient.
Thank you, Mr. Matthew. And so one final question before we go. Rafael asks, does the world want Africa to improve in AI? That's his question. Does the world want Africa?
It's a great question, and I think more people need to ask it, to be honest with you. I really think, and I this is just off experience and just from a lot of research that I've made. If you have a look at the world, and I tend to look, and I'm going to go a bit off on a tangent just for a minute, but if you have a look at the world and you look at economies, instead of looking at them as economies, look at them as businesses, and look at Africa as a business. What does Africa offer the world? It offers cheap resources and cheap labor. So a lot of countries and a lot of companies can exploit that for their benefits. Why would they want to change that? Unless there's an interest for themselves, they wouldn't want to change that. So it's a question that I sit with often. I don't know the answer. I wish I did, and I wish I could say that the world does want the best for Africa. But if you go and look at how global economics work, you start to ask a lot of very interesting questions. And I think once the narrative changes and people realize Africa is not just some barren landscape where animals walk and roam, there's actually highly intelligent individuals that live there and that want to empower the world with their technology and their ideas, then we might get some support in that sense. But it's going to be a very tough narrative to change.
Thank you so much, Mr. Matthew. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much, guys. We will not be taking any further questions. So, Mr. Matthew has really spoken about AI in the African economy, the opportunities, the limitations. But what's really, really important to us is that, yes, we want to have great jobs and work for great companies and also leverage AI. But that question I really ask you, do you really have AI skills? Do you have skills that are really relevant in the AI society today? Our next speaker, Mr. Daniel Wazi, will be doing a dissection of what skills we will need as future AI experts. So good afternoon, Mr. Daniel. Nice to meet you.
Good afternoon, Valentine. Great to be here. Okay, so I'm going to quickly share my screen.
Boss man himself.
Right. I hope you can see my screen.
Not yet, Mr. Daniel. We cannot see your screen.
Give me a second. Okay.
All right, great. Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay, good. Yeah, good afternoon once again. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And today we are going to talk about a very important subject that we all need to know. Now, Mr. Matthew mentioned in his presentation that Africa needs education. And I agree, because education is, for me, I believe is the most fundamental step we need to take to develop this continent. That is why we need to get the right kind of education and use that to improve our circumstances. There was a question, at the end of the presentation, that does the world really want Africans to get into the AI space? And the question is, do we need the world's permission to get into the AI space? Do we really need their permission? And even if the world doesn't want Africans to get into the AI space, does it mean Africans shouldn't get into the AI space? Those are some of the important questions I think we all should be considering. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how to get into AI through the data science part, right? So let's talk about data science. What are we going to be discussing in today's talk? We are going to talk about what data science is. We'll talk about how to get into this data science. What tools do data scientists use? What are the applications of data science? We've mentioned a lot of them right now, but we are going to learn of others. How do you become a data scientist? And what do recruiters look for in a data scientist? Then we'll end with what are some of the careers in data science, right? Then I'll share my own experience, my journey from learning programming all the way to becoming the CTO of Zummit Africa. And I think all these discussions will be very helpful to the individuals who want to get into the AI space and develop the African economy today. So let's get started. So what is data science, right? Now, data science is a huge umbrella, right? That involves a lot of things. It's a huge umbrella that involves a lot of things, right? So it includes one, extracting insights from massive data to make informed decision making. We talk about communicating data insight through statistics and charts or visualizations. We also talk about predicting the future with predictive models, right? So data science is a broad interdisciplinary subject, right? Or field of study, where we have computer science, we have statistics, we have mathematics, we have so many other things, right? Now, why do we need to get in data science, or why do you need to get in data science right now? Why do you want to get, or why must you try right now to get into the space? One is there's a huge demand for data scientists, not only in Africa, but globally, right? So it means that at this point, according to one statistics from the Bureau of Statistics that is in US, there is a 35% increase in employment growth for data scientists globally. Okay. Two, there is a huge volume of data generated daily. That is one important concept. The volume of data we are generating on a regular basis is huge. That is estimated about some 2 million terabytes a day. Okay. And imagine all that data is analyzed and insight derived from it. Think about all the benefit that we will gain by analyzing all this data, right? Another necessity or the reason for doing data science right now is the increase in compute tools, right? Right now, it's a little easier to do even large scale data science than it was before because of GPUs and TPUs and very large processing applications and hardware, right? So all these things make it easy right now for somebody to get into data science. Now, what are some of the tools that data scientists use? We want to like segment these tools into different categories, right? So we talk about programming languages, that is one. If you want to go through the programming route, of course, the most principal tool for data science will be Excel, right? You could also use Excel, but Python is the most popular. R is there. We have SQL. If you don't know about this, they are all tools or programming languages that help you to like manipulate and analyze very large data sets, right? Then recently, there was a very fast programming language that was introduced, which is Julia. It's also another programming language that helps in data science. We can also talk about cloud tools like Google Colab. Now, Google Colab is a free space online that enables anybody at all. So even if you don't have, or your machine you are using is not strong enough to handle very large workloads, you can use Google Colab and get access to TPUs and GPUs that will help you do your data science work. Another one is Paperspace. We have Amazon also have one free online notebooks that you can use to like train your data, right? Locally, you can do data science on your machine using the Jupyter Notebook. VS Code is another one. We also have statistical method like EDAs, statistical tests, machine learning, math, and all that. And all these tools are used by data scientists on a regular basis. What are the applications of data science? That is another key area that we need to look at. Now, Matthew mentioned a lot of areas of application for artificial intelligence. For example, we talked about using it in farming. And this is very helpful right now. I know a startup in Africa called AI Scarecrow that uses artificial intelligence to drive bears away to prevent them from eating crops and then thereby reducing yield. And that is a very application of artificial intelligence right here in Africa, right? So there are numerous benefits of AI and data science that anybody at all can implement right now, okay? We can talk about drug development, data science being used in that area, lead generation, sales funnel generation, customer segmentation. For example, you want to know which customers are buying your product the most, right? And where you should target your marketing effort. That you can do that with data science. We can also talk about chatbots. I did a webinar initially on chatbots. If you missed that, you can go and watch the video later on. It will be coming on YouTube soon. But there are so many applications of data science and AI right now that we can leverage as Africans to improve our economies. Okay. I'm sure that if I ask anybody right now to tell me one application of data science or artificial intelligence, I'm sure I'll get everybody to tell me something, right? Now, let's talk about how you can actually become a data scientist. Okay, so how do you actually get into this space? Because there's a lot of buzzwords out there as to what to do to become a data scientist. The first thing would be to learn one of the programming languages that we use for data science. We talk about Python is very popular. R is also cool. SQL has been there for a long time and is still being used for data science. Julia is a new member of the family now that you can also explore. Next, you need to learn statistics. So data science involves largely the application of statistical methods that includes statistical tests and all the other things you know in statistics, right? So you need to know some statistics to be a data scientist. Now, you also need to learn how to tell stories from data. That is data visualization. Because at the end of the day, if you can communicate your insight to your audience and then help make informed decision making, then you practically haven't done much. So it is very important that we learn how to visualize and tell stories from data. Okay. Now, there are also non-technical skills that are required to be a very good data scientist. For example, we talk about communication, analytical thinking, problem solving, because after all, data science is solving problems with what? Data. Okay. Now, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I started learning programming when I went to the university, level 200. When I was introduced to programming, it felt so difficult. We started learning C++, and I thought that was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I promised that I would never program in my life until I met a friend who introduced me to Python. And I thought Python was relatively easier. It was about that time when data science was gaining, a lot of grounds. A lot of people were talking about it. Initially, they said it was meant for people with PhDs. But that didn't deter me because I think I had to get PhD to learn what PhD people are actually learning, right? So I started learning, reading about data science online, mostly. And then eventually I got some resources, some books on it. I was learning that when I got to level 300, I got my first job as a software engineer. Afterwards, in 400, I got the job as a data scientist. And from now, I'm the CTO for Zummit Africa. Most of that journey, right, shows that even if your circumstances are not ideal right now, you can still get into this space. Okay, you can still learn what you need to know to be a part of this. Okay, and of course, we talked about how data science or how AI is generating or how people can get employment when they have these skills. And I have employment because of these skills, right? So it is possible. Some people, it's not just me, there are a lot of Africans who are getting employment in these areas. Okay, so it is possible for everybody to do this. Now, what are some of the lessons I learned throughout my journey? One of them is that programming is problem solving. Okay, so data science is problem solving. You are trying to solve problems. So you need to make sure you understand the problem you're trying to solve, and you make sure that your solution is solving the problem. Okay. The next thing you need to know is you are not really learning until you practice. Practice is one of the fastest way actually to learn programming or to learn coding. If you don't practice your skills, you forget them. So you need to be practicing on a regular basis if you're going to get good in this field. Another thing too is sharing is growth, okay? Sometimes you may think that you are doing other people a service when you are sharing your knowledge with other people. But if you don't share your knowledge, when you share your knowledge, you benefit yourself. If you don't share it, you are not only like affecting yourself, you are also like affecting other people as well. Okay, you are not helping to make this continent a nice place for everybody to like benefit from your work. Okay, and mind you, most of the jobs I got as a data scientist were through the things I did on LinkedIn. Okay, so because I put myself out there, I was able to get people who wanted what I was offering and then hire me for it. Okay, so if you don't share your knowledge, if you don't share what you do, nobody knows what you do. And at the end of the day, you don't benefit and the world also loses, right? So you have to share. When you create something, you have to share it. Details matters. Programming is a detail-oriented activity. So you need to focus on the little things, okay? They are all important in the grand scheme of things. Failures and bugs are a crucial part of the process. Yes, you can't learn anything on this planet without failures and then getting into a little trouble, right? So it is okay sometimes when you run into bugs that you can't solve. Sometimes some bugs take even a week or more. But at the end of the day, you get the solution to it. And you are only learning when you get to that
Sorry
point.
for interrupting, Mr. Daniel.
Yes.
Please, can you summarize, sir?
Okay, sure. I'm almost done. And then one thing too is that it's okay to ask for help. Okay. So it's okay to ask for help sometimes. Simplicity is also very important. Sometimes the best solutions are only a simple solution. Okay. So yes, what do employers look for? Passion is important, projects, problem solving. And I want to remind you guys that we are very soon going to be enrolling a couple of courses in data science that will help anybody who wants to like get into the space. So look out for those. And thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Daniel, for actually dissecting how to get into data science. I think one of the particular things about learning data science for me was the fact that there are so many tools. There are so many tools to learn. Well, I actually got understanding that you need to understand how data works, right? How you can actually solve data-driven decisions. You can pick up any tool in 1, 2, 3 months and get a hang of it. So thank you so much, Mr. Daniel. So we'll not be taking questions because of time. We'll take all the questions at the end of towards the end of the program. So we'll just be jumping into the second speaker. So the second speaker is Mr. Abraham Oduni. He's a medical researcher in AI. He's a data scientist and he has worked on really, really amazing projects. And I would actually say I'm a testament to his great work in data science. So thank you so much. And he'll be talking about the challenges of computer vision. So before, I'm sure you're trying to think of what is actually computer vision. So some of the application of computer vision has to be your facial recognition. So yeah, I think that's one of the very, very big applications of computer vision. So without much further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Abraham. So good afternoon, Mr. Abraham. Nice to have you.
Hey, good afternoon, Valentine. Thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here again. I've been enjoying the presentation so far. From Mr. Matthew's presentation down to Mr. Daniel's presentation. So far, they've done so wonderful stuff. Today, I'm just going to talk briefly about the challenges of implementing computer vision, particularly it's an aspect of artificial intelligence here in the African space. Basically, I'm going to be giving you both a practical perspective and to make the whole stuff flow well with you, I'm going to be giving you more of a practical perspective. So Valentine, you can go into the presentation now. So basically, right, we know we've been speaking about AI. My presentation is a bit directed to those with more technical orientation and a more technical background. Yeah, so I believe it's also directed to investors and it's also directed to just people that want to learn. So, but you're going to get more if you kind of have a little bit technical background. So, the current state of computer vision and AI in general can be analyzed from 2 points of view. You can see it from the academic research, and we can see it from the aspect of industry. Earlier on, Mr. Daniel mentioned something about having a PhD. So basically, that's why it's important. There are 2 sides of AI: the one you do in the research part and the one you do in industry. Why this is paramount is because when you go into AI, it's a bit different from the general software background, where you just have to debug your code when your code have errors. But in AI, you also have to debug performance. You have to debug accuracy. You also have to debug the metrics that you use to look at improvement. So that's what we're talking about 2 points of view here. So from a research point of view, you can see generally the state of AI in Africa has been restricted to adaptation and localization. What do I mean by this? Adaptation and localization in the sense that what it has been so far is bringing in pre-trained model, mostly from Hugging Face and from Google and from other top giants, and applying the whole data sets we have in Africa. So it's like, oh, what we do mostly is to bring already pre-trained model and just apply data set. So that's what it has been so far, and that's the current state. And we can look at the challenges of this, and we can look at how these hamper the movement of AI also in Africa. So next, we're going to be looking at further into this. So Valentine, can proceed. So most of the work, like I said, has been confined to already established algorithms, and there's little or no much innovation that's been seen in the African space. Of course, this is fair because this defines Africa largely. What defines us here in Africa? What makes you different from makes us different from the people in the West? That's America and everything. Is our data set and our culture. We see what defines us as like things like data sets in the sense like language. We see what defines us as things like our attire. So those are like what quote and unquote makes aside the general things like face recognition and crime and what other was mentioned. So what brings the uniqueness when you're looking at this phase, this phase is the data set. And of course, this has to some extent lead to a more heightened experimentation in things like natural language processing. You can call that natural language understanding in that space over that of computer vision. So because of this is what it has looked like. Another thing you can look at as the challenge of AI and computer vision generally is there's a lack in the aspect of research and algorithm ideation. So when you look at this, compared to what we have currently in the African space and in other space, take for example the ConvNet. It was developed by Jan LeCun. He was doing his PhD, of course, in the US, and that is the ConvNet is a groundbreaking stuff in computer vision, and it is what has revolutionized computer. It is what makes computer vision. It's like the core backbone of computer vision now, and it was proposed by someone else outside the African space. You see the same thing for the YOLO algorithm, which was brought in by Joseph Redmond. So most of these people are not in the African space. So, but when you look at African space, we see little or no much innovation coming in from the aspects of algorithm, and there's no so much ideation. One of the reasons for this could be the fact that there's when you look at the space where these people had, Mr. Matthew and Mr. Daniel had earlier mentioned that we have issues with infrastructure and so many other things affiliated. So those most of the issues they had most of the resources they had fostered algorithm ideations and fostered innovations in the aspect of research, and which is more of a lacuna that we're having here in Nigeria. There's also a gap in collaboration between the industry, like I said, and between the industry and research. So this is to a large extent a general problem as outside and inside Africa, where what you have in the industry, so what you have as a researcher, a groundbreaking algorithm has been made, and for you to put this into production, which is what we do mostly at Zummit Africa, it becomes a huge challenge, and it becomes that there's a huge challenge and difficulty in implementing this. Take, for example, when you look at outstanding research papers and you read those papers and you see, oh, these people are assembled like 7 models together. They were able to get 99.9% accuracy. This is mind-blowing. This is awesome. But when you want to put this into production practically, it is very difficult for you to put 7 assembled model together in like a mobile phone or something. So that's where you have a lot of issues in production and research. And bringing that back to the African space, we see so little research being done in universities and higher institutions. And we see the gap, it is even widened here in Africa compared to where you see in Europe, in America, and in Asia. The gap between the collaborations of the researchers and industry, it's not so much close, and it's something we need to also look at here in Africa. And also, I said earlier, we're going to be talking about this from 2 points of view. I've spoken so far about research, ideation, algorithm development, and how it has been a challenge, and more like there's lacuna there. So for the rest of this conversation, I'm going to be talking about a more practical approach, and I'll be using a case study of our face recognition model, face recognition product that we built here in Africa. Sometimes you can hold on for the video. Let me just give up a little bit background on it. So earlier on, Daniel, Mr. Daniel mentioned so many applications of artificial intelligence here in Africa. Also, I remember Mr. Matthew mentioning quite a number of them. So when you look at this, there are enormous applications here in Africa that you can use artificial intelligence for. But I'm going to talk, since I'm talking about computer vision, I'm going to be showcasing this face recognition product, and we're going to talk about the challenges of doing something similar like this here in Africa. This is going to give you an insight on what you're going to face when you try to put an AI product into production. So basically, what we did in that project was to construct a software that helps recognize multiple people. So when you currently have on your phone, for those people that use an Apple phone or an Android phone, what you currently have on your phone is a face verification model. The stuff where you just put your face on your phone and it automatically unlocks. That's a face recognition. So what we're trying to do here is to make a variant of that by making it recognize more than one people, which is all about the project. So the project followed what we did in particular in the project. We had to use the Siemens network and triplet loss function to compute the loss for the model. So what we did was to get images from our employees at Zummit Africa. We got their image, and we used the Siemens network to compute embeddings for them, and at the end of the day we were able to get a product. That's a bit technical, and I don't want to go so much into the technical aspect of it. So what we further did was to scaling it. So I'm going to chip in a bit of challenge we had now before we go fully into that. So while we're trying to use the Siemens network, what we had was, just like the way the paper says, right? We had this model offline. We didn't have it in production. We are not making inference with it. So when you throw a single picture to the model, it performs really well. But when you take this model into production, the model misbehaves a lot. We see a little bit of inaccuracies in the model, and that was one of the challenges we had, seeing that the model was performing awesome offline, but when it's online, we didn't have so much. So we had to resort to this face recognition package in Python that we used at the long run, and we still also have some challenges with that. So at the end of the day, what we did was to package this product in a Jetson Nano device, in an edge device, which is a Jetson Nano device that was produced by NVIDIA. It's more like a small device that you can easily put your AI product. So if you're interested in making an AI product for a client or a business or an organization, it's just advisable you put something like that in a more packaged form. Valentine, you can go ahead with the video now. So you can see what it does now. So here, what we have is the model in production. I don't know why the audio is not coming up, right? Okay, so that's where the X you get there says the model didn't perform well, and the thumbs up you get is the model the model performing well. So what we have there is the model in production, in the sense we had a Jetson Nano and we didn't have a physical screen to do that. So that was a challenge we had. As at the time when we tried to get the Jetson Nano device, it was quite affordable. But when we finally tried to make payment and get everything, we discovered that inflation rate here in Nigeria had doubled, and the price of the Jetson Nano device had also doubled. So we're looking at 200% increments of the Jetson Nano device. So that we also had issues with cost, and we also had issues with financing. So we couldn't go for a Raspberry Pi screen or something. So we had to use a big screen like a TV. So that was the model being implemented with the Jetson Nano behind the TV there. So, and another challenge we had was we had a remote team, right? So we couldn't have each of the employees come to test the product in particular. That was one challenge we had. So we just had to send everybody's picture. Hey, I'm trying to put this into production. That's my very good friend Samuel. Testing the model with some of our pictures. So Valentine, you can replay the video again. So now that I've given the background, so they can just see what's happening. So that's the model being tested with the picture on the mobile phone. So I don't know if you can zoom in, you can see. Yeah, so that's the mobile phone, and yeah, that's where the model failed, and that's where the model later got it. So there's an audio attached to this. Unfortunately, it's not playing. So, but the model calls out the person's name that's in the picture. So it performs relatively well, and that is something we could ship to the clients. So Valentine, you can move to the next slide now. So for this project we did, we could talk about the challenges inside this project and the challenges beyond this project. So one of the major challenges we had, and one of the major challenges seen generally in the aspect of computer vision, is data collection and data quantity and data quality. On the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, you can see a couple of images we got from our employees. We see that some of the images, most of the images were not so clear. And that is the issue we have here in Africa. We have issues a lot with data, data quality in particular. So these are awesome data, but if you train a model with these, sorry, pardon me. If you train a model with this, you see the model doesn't really capture who this person is, and that's where the lacuna comes in, coming with half the hair covering half of the face, coming with the face from side view, and coming with a lot of background noise with hand and face. So those were some of the issues. So another issue we have largely here, aside this project in Africa as regards data, is the fact that data, the data culture is not really something that that fosters innovation. So when you want to go through the process of getting data here in Africa, you're going to have to go through a lot of paperwork, especially when most of the data sets are being handled by the government. There's a lot of bureaucracy in acquiring data from that part. And the whole culture in Africa, very few investors want to go into the whole process of, hey, I think we want to create a data center here that collects data and look further into research. If you take, for example, globally, there's I think 2 or just 1 AWS data centers in Africa.
Hi, Mr. Abraham. Sorry for interrupting you. Please can you summarize?
Okay, so I should just summarize it. So another challenges we had with data collection, we also had disparities in performance offline and online. We also had low resources from the camera we're using, and we also had low compute power. So as a startup, we needed we had issues with compute power, and that was one of the challenges we had. And we also had a lack of infrastructure support for supporting a remote team. So those are the challenges we had, and majorly we had the major challenge we had so far was with data. So you can move to the next slide, Valentine. So there are suggestions here that we have used to that we can use to overcome these. So basically, you just go through them as we need a shift in the cultural paradigm here in Africa. We need people to believe in the AI space. We need people to come more into the AI space. We need people to help bring in data that are open source and data that are not for sale, which is what most people do. So data that are open source. When we have a shift in cultural mindset generally, you can see people coming into data. We can see support coming in. We can see people coming into the AI space, and their opportunity comes in. So just challenges I've mentioned are also opportunities in disguise. We've also seen support from organizations like Google, from support like Microsoft, creating PhD programs to cover up for the lacuna in algorithm development. And generally, lastly, we have the Zummit Academy that's actually training people. So we are bringing these challenges to you, that these are things you might see when you're going into computer vision, when you're putting a computer vision model into production. And you should be aware of that. And for you to be able to overcome this as a collective set of people here in Africa, we need more hands in the data space. And that's why we're inviting you all to Zummit Africa, to Zummit Academy. Come learn, come put your hand in. That way we can generate more data, we can get more opportunities open to everybody. And that way there's a shift in cultural paradigm. I think that's all. Thank you so much for that. I'll be taking questions now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abraham, for that dissection. We'll be taking our questions at the final presentation of the program. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Abraham. That is some of the challenges with computer vision. So facial recognition is actually a very, very big application of computer vision, and you can see it in banks, our cell phone devices, and yeah, basically it's really, really, really popular right now. So because of time, it's been a very, very, we've had 3 amazing sessions, and we've had really, really amazing speakers. So I'll just give a recap. So Mr. Matthew spoke about AI in the African economy, and Mr. Daniel spoke about how to actually get into the AI atmosphere. And then Mr. Abraham spoke about the challenges of computer vision. So it's really, really been amazing. And we'll be having our final session for today. And our speaker, Mr. Praveen Kumar, the co-founder of Zummit Info Labs. He is a visionary and a mentor to me as well. I'm a big fan as well. And he has an MBA in IT management and bachelor's in engineering. So welcome, Mr. Praveen. Nice to have you here today.
Thank you, Valentine. Can you hear me? Can you confirm, Valentine?
Yes, I can. I hear you.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I hope my screen is also visible. Yeah. Okay, I'll just make it to the presentation mode. Okay, yeah, so I'm Praveen Kumar. I have about 23 years plus of experience in the IT industry. I've been working on artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, robotic process automation, blockchain, and most of the emerging technologies. I have lived and worked in the United States, Canada, Europe, China, and many other countries. I currently work out of India. Before I even talk about my experience with Africa, I'd like to talk about, I'm going to use the preface is about building an AI startup last year, and how did I get introduced to Africa and what I learned from it, and something very interesting about it. So it's probably like a small story I'm going to talk about. Last year, about a year back, we were thinking about to do something in AI, ML, and that's when thought about an AI startup came into mind, and that was the beginning of Zummit Info Labs. Zummit Info Labs is a global company. We are based out of various places. We have presence in the US, Canada, India, Germany, UK, and initially what we did is, and in Africa, and then initially what we did, we tried to hire some interns from across the globe. And that's how it all started. We got some interns from Spain and Germany and UK and US and Canada. And then we also had some interns applying from Nigeria, Egypt, Kenya, and some other places. So we had our management folks working out of Germany and Canada so they were able to handle the North American and European teams. But the team from Africa, we did not have anyone to manage. So there was some folks from different parts of Africa, primarily Nigeria, a few, then Kenya, Morocco, and some other parts like I think there was one from Rwanda and other places, right? So there was something very interesting about the Africa team. We used to call that as the overall Africa team, although it's a continent because of the time zone and a lot of other reasons. We were calling it as the Africa team. We found the team to be very dedicated, and it was very interesting working with them. So what I saw was a lot of proactiveness. What I saw was a lot of interest, eagerness, and the very first person who joined the team was Jonathan Enudeme. So Jonathan Enudeme is where our journey with Africa began. And while Zummit was globally working on various different things on face detection, emotion detection, terrorism detection, racism detection, quite a few projects, Jonathan, who joined us actually initially more for an internship, trying to learn and get involved in machine learning, deep learning, we saw that the amount of learning, the amount of interest, the amount of the talent that he showed was very, very interesting. Jonathan was proactive. I would get a message every morning from Jonathan saying, hey, what are we working on today? Is there any task for me? I was quite surprised and taken aback by someone so proactive. On a daily basis, he was asking for tasks. He was giving a report without asking what is going on with the tasks and activities. And then Jonathan brought in a couple of his friends, Busayo and some other people. Next thing I see, they were exactly the same. They were also eager and they had this desire to learn. And the other thing was because of the time zone, whenever we had morning meetings in, let's say, India or Canada, it would be odd timings in Africa. But I remember so many times Jonathan, Busayo, and the rest of the team being available at 5 a.m. Africa time, 6 a.m. Africa time to join the meetings, and they were part of the meeting. So the flexibility, the desire to learn, and the drive that I saw from the Africa team made me wonder, okay, this team seems to be really good. Why don't we hire some more people from Africa and see if we can produce some results out of that? We already saw a lot of outcome from the team members, especially the current team, Valentine and Daniel and so many other people, right? There's a big team out there, Abraham and Elizabeth. There's a big team doing a lot of good work. So that's when I thought, why don't we do something and work with, engage and improve the Africa team, make a bigger team out of it. So there was something other interesting thing that I saw about the Africa team, right? So they were very hardworking and they were very humble. And when I tried to understand why is this such a common trait across Africa, right? With all the countries or many countries that I worked with, they were all hardworking. So then it came to me, right? So I've gone and brought up in India, and then I moved to the United States and worked in Europe and many other Western countries. I could relate and see that people in Africa, when they're born, it's not like they get their own private bedroom as a small baby or a kid, right? It's not like they start driving a car when they're 16 or 17, which is probably common in some of the Western countries. They have seen the hardships, right? They have seen, they are hardworking, they understand hardship, they understand that if you want to succeed, if you have to compete, you have to work hard. You cannot just, just be a little smart and get away, because there is so much of challenges in terms of facilities, in terms of available resources, in terms of, some things that we call as necessity is actually a luxury there. We're talking about high temperatures and no air conditioning. So this is many of the countries used to face that. With all that background, I could see that the people here were so hardworking, so committed, so dedicated. And on top of it, they were not arrogant, they were modest, they were humble, and they were very honest. So that made me think, what else should I do with the team, right? So one other thing I saw from the team was there was a sense of community across many countries in Africa. This is also probably because they grow up with families and relatives and people around, and this makes a very positive thing, especially in IT, when we're working on projects. When we're working on software IT projects, we work as a team, and having that sense of community is very important for making successful deliveries in a project. So that's when we started thinking, how about having either a branch or having a separate startup in Africa itself? Because Africa is huge. There are so many countries, so much of talent around there, available there. So why don't we do that? With Jonathan Enudeme and team, we had a discussion. I was asking him about how do we take this up. He showed so much of leadership. He started building the teams around him. We said, yes, let's do it. So that's when we talked about, and Jonathan started up with Zummit Africa. And one of the great things that happened about Zummit Africa is the team was built. We had like 40, 50 people in no time. And the same level of interest we saw with all the people that joined. There were some colleges which were teaching AI, ML. There were some AI colleges, events. So many things were happening, which was quite exciting and interesting for us. And then Jonathan built a team, and he built a team of various technologies. We had an HR department in Zummit Africa. We built a GMC, that is Global Marketing and Communications team in Zummit Africa. We had machine learning engineers. We had data scientists. Then we started growing. Then something very exciting and interesting happened. Was an investor from UK, Exigent, reached out, and we spoke to them. We gave a presentation. They were really impressed. And then they did the seed funding, which has now led us to move to the next level and start working and building a lot of solutions in the AI ML space. We have already started approaching people across Africa and Europe for projects, and we've been quite successful in talking and meeting with a lot of good conversions. Right? Now, something very interesting about African talent. I've already talked about the way the people are in Africa and my experience with working with the African talent. Something we need to know about why African talent is very important is there is a big talent shortage across the globe. Right? We're talking about North America, Europe, and other places. There is a talent shortage. Companies are constantly looking for good talent. And Africa as a continent is not as explored as some of the other countries like India, for example. So much of people from India get hired in US and Europe and other countries. Africa is still unexplored. And there is a high potential in Africa. And to fill the gap, especially with Europe and North America coming up with the talent shortage, there needs to be a gap that needs to be filled in the coming 5 to 10 years. And World Bank reports are saying that in the next 10 years or so, there is going to be a huge increase in population in Africa of younger talent. And a lot of digital upskilling programs are already going on, which makes Africa a very potential place for hiring talent, and African talent becomes very important. And not just that, the talent pool in Africa is quite good. From my personal experience, I have hired Python developers. I had some of the very, very good UX designers from South Africa and some other countries in Africa. We had very good machine learning. We still have a lot of good machine learning engineers from Nigeria, from Rwanda, from Kenya and other places. We always get web developers in Africa. We have found them really good, both front-end, back-end engineers, middle tier, database design. But we've been very successful in hiring both talent and interns from Africa. We've had some of the best Scrum Masters also, especially like Elizabeth and all from Africa, who've been very good. They've handled teams in Brazil and North America and India very successfully. So the talent pool is one thing. Then looking at Africa as a continent itself, there are 54 countries, 24 of them are English-speaking countries, which is English is their primary language. And the current population is more than 1 billion, about 1.2 billion in population. And the prediction is it will double by 2050. And already 60% of the population right now is under 30, which means in the next 10 years, we will be seeing a 70% of the population, of more than 50% population being between 25 and 35, which is very employable, which is of good age and good talent. That will help solve the talent shortage in Africa and North America. And not just that, just to prove this fact, why Africa is important as a talent and why Africa is a good investment area is you can look at some of the big players, especially Google and Microsoft and Huawei and many other companies have started the accelerator programs, incubation centers, sponsorships, investments. Google has this African startups, Africa founders, which is seed to series program. They give a lot of benefits. They give a lot of guidance, support, technology, cloud, and many other things. NVIDIA is giving an amazing program which provides hardware, software, trainings, GPUs, and many more things for the people. So this is all Africa focused, and this makes it very exciting for investors to come in and pitch in into the African economy. And again, when we say Africa, there are some prime countries. There are many countries where you will find talent. I have been able to hire people not just from the green places, but also from the other places. But just to highlight a few top countries for VC investment, we're looking at Nigeria, we're looking at South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, Ghana, Kenya, and many more places, right? So this is some of the countries where there's a lot of startup activity. Many startups have come in. They're working on fintech, payments, application development, and machine learning, AI, drowsiness detection, truck management, logistics, e-commerce, and a lot. So to summarize the overall presentation, I've also tried to keep it short, keeping the time in constraints. We talked about my initial experience with Africa by Zummit Info Labs, converting also into another startup called Zummit Africa, and then working with the African talent, working with the different technologies like Python, machine learning, deep learning, and web development, backend databases, and a lot more. We also looked at and talked about the major problem, that is the talent shortage, which is coming up, that needs to be resolved. And then we also looked at the talent pool in Africa and how it can be suitable for investments. And that is a message from my side. It's a very prime place for investments and very good talent pool from my personal experience. And we are going to continue exploring, expanding, and improving our the stamp in Africa, and we're going to grow, and we will be receiving a lot of attention from investors. Already investors are calling us and talking to us about taking it to the next level. And I'd like to shout out for all the team here in Zummit Africa for doing such a wonderful job, and wishing good luck to everyone. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, so without much further ado, our CEO, Mr. Jonathan, would like to give his final address. So good day, Mr. Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you very much. It has been a very, very interesting program so far. And I really appreciate everyone who has come around, spent time to open themselves up to the many opportunities that are there. We just want to avail ourselves to them and tap into the opportunities. Yes, AI is not actually new. A lot of big firms in Nigeria, banks, and big firms actually pay companies abroad. Talk about AWS, Google. A lot of them are paying these companies abroad big money to implement AI to help them use their algorithms to better their business. You talk about face verification. African banks are paying companies abroad to build face verification products for them, KYC products. So these are opportunities. These are products that have been built by these people abroad, and Nigerians are paying to use them. Africans are paying to use them, but we have the talent here in Africa to implement them, to build them. So there was a question raised that would the foreign people allow Africa to develop AI, to get good education in AI? They're not holding us actually, and the truth is, these courses, AI is not actually taught in the Nigerian universities. We don't have serious research in Africa as such. There are very, very few, if you're going to find any. But the opportunities online, everything you learn is virtually online. You can get degrees and all that online. So of course, they would not hinder us from developing the opportunities, and they know that there are opportunities. They're coming to Africa to stage their companies, open up opportunities because of the future. So indeed, there are many opportunities. We just want to get ourselves ready to tap into them. Thank you very much, everyone who has joined in. We are democratizing AI in Africa, and we're starting with education because it's one of the most important. Valentine made mention of how China got into the AI space when they suffered defeat from the USA with the AI algorithm that Google Brain team DeepMind built. And China didn't see that defeat as AI defeating their best player. They saw it as a defeat of Africa, USA defeating China, and they took it up. AI was in China then, but they put more effort. The government invested intentionally in AI, where universities started teaching AI, machine learning, and the whole lot of these investments. In fact, the government will give you money. They will give each region money, develop, come up with ideas. And as we speak now, there are cities in China that are fully automated. with AI. They just want the innovation. So they're doing whatever it takes. The space is wide for them. So I raised a question some times ago, talking about what are the steps, what are the most important things to build a strong African AI superpower? Is it data? Is it government policies? Is it AI education? You know, these things have to be there. They have to be in place. But we actually need some governmental policies to help to ease the influx of AI talents and implementing AI. These are problems that we'll be facing, and we're trying to solve them gradually as we can. And we hope that with time, Africa will join the League of AI Superpowers. We're already doing that. We have talents all over the world, in Africa, in the US, in China, coming from Africa. We just need to bring them, localize them to our area, and we'll be up there. So thank you very much. The video for this presentation will be made available soon. The slides will be made available on request as well to anyone who is interested. And Zummit Africa is open to both local and foreign investors. We are both US and Nigerian-based startup, so investment can come in from both ways. We are building a talent pool, making sure that a lot of people get knowledge in AI, not just AI, but other technological advances. Thank you very much once more, and we hope to have more of these presentations, and not just presentations, but bringing up solutions as a result of these presentations. And that's it from here. We welcome your questions if you have any. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for that wonderful keynote. Thank you so much, Mr. Jonathan. And one thing I should also lay emphasis on, as of 2021, the rate at which foreign investors were investing in companies in Africa grew by 438.8%. That is way ahead. And this is an opportunity for us to learn and get those AI skills and be very relevant in society. So I'll be giving this opportunity for those that have questions. Do we have any amazing questions? Who love to answer your question. You can type it in the search box, or you can also unmute your mic. Be excited and happy to answer your question. I'll ask once again, any question? Okay, so thank you so much for attending this wonderful session.
There is a question from someone about, okay. Do you see companies like Zummit Africa partnering with governments to increase their reach? Absolutely. I think even being an outsider from Africa, I know the answer to this question. So we already are in talks, and there are some requirements about yield of a crop of agricultural areas of related to the government, and there is a computer vision based satellite photography, satellite imagery project that we were in talks with, and that is related to the government, and many more probably related to the drowsiness detection. We are also talking about the airlines which are national government related airlines for terrorism detection and racism detection type of projects, which will be very beneficial and useful for public safety and health. We are working with blind people related projects in Germany, which we will also be using with the African talent for development, which may also get into the reach of the government. So yes, thank you. That's a great question. I'm glad that I was able to answer that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Praveen, for that wonderful question. So Mr. Zona has a question for you as well. So he said, how can AI solve insecurity issues in Nigeria, considering the limitations we actually face? Hi, Mr. Praveen.
Oh, I can answer that, but I was hoping this was specific to Nigeria, but sure. See, AI will solve, okay, you're talking about insecurity, right? When you say insecurity, I need to understand that part. Are we talking about individual, personal, psychological aspect of insecurity, are you talking about security of applications and stuff? Okay, can I get a little more clarity on that?
Hi, Mr. Melvin. Did you get that?
I can talk about both aspects. Insecurity is the feeling of people about attending interviews or feeling that, hey, I may not be as good enough and all, but sometimes insecurity helps in becoming stronger. I myself am a civil engineer, but I once stayed in national awards in software development. And that was because of my initial insecurity of, oh, will I be able to make it? But then I was very competent. I said, I have to work harder than everybody else to get ahead of time. But from using AI for this, right? So we do have a couple of projects, which is about when people take interviews, it will look at the facial emotion detection. It will look at the confidence levels. It gives a score. These tools can be used as practice sessions for people preparing for interviews. We have created deep fake bots, which will be, you can choose an American or a European, a British person, or from someone from Singapore, or as a person to interview you from the software. And then it will ask you questions on the topic or subject, and then you answer the questions. It applies NLP and gives you back the score. This would be a very realistic practice application for improving on your interviews. If you're talking about insecurity, that's something I can think of. If you were talking about security of applications or security of systems, computer vision, some of the things like terrorism detection uses anomalous behavior. When someone pulls out a gun or a knife in an airport or a public place, our object detection module will immediately pick up that. Like someone looking at 8 screens and someone pulling out a knife in the 4th screen from the bottom left. Maybe a human may not be able to look at that immediately, but a computer program which is trained for object detection, specifically for dangerous objects, will be able to immediately detect, improving the response time, improving the security. So I don't know which was the question, but I tried to answer what I could. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pravin. So one final question. Hi, Mr. Ahmad.
I think we already are talking to folks from Ghana. In fact, something very interesting about Ghana is that a leadership person that we spoke to, Jonathan has been speaking to from Ghana, who has experience with startups, who has a lot of knowledge. I have personal experience with people from Ghana. When I was working in the United States, when I was in Washington, DC, I had colleagues from Ghana, Accra, and I think that's a very good talent pool in Ghana. There is a focus on Ghana right now as an African nation for investments. Zummit Africa can collaborate with Ghana. Definitely, we'll be more than happy to get involved into that. We can talk more on this. Yeah. Okay, Zummit Info, Zummit Africa, Zummit UK, are they same or are there any differences? Good question. Very interesting. Zummit Info Labs, Zummit UK, Zummit Germany, all these are like the same entity. Zummit Africa started off as a part of Zummit Info Labs, but thanks to the leadership of Jonathan, he has independently been able to do a lot of hiring, talent management, talking to investors, converting the investment and all. So Zummit Africa, we spun off as a separate entity, and that is also registered in the US and in Africa, and it will work very independently, although we will be collaborated. All the projects that's being worked in Zummit Info Labs will always be available to Zummit Africa. All the talent, the team, the members, the technology, it's all common. So the spirit is the same. Legal entities might be different. So if that answers the question, Rafael.
Right, thank you so much, Mr. Pravin. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Valentine, do you mind if I chip in something?
So,
please go ahead.
Like Pravin is saying, Ghana is hot right now, right? So all the guys from Ghana, you need to work hard. We have a lot of programs that is going to help you to get into the space. Okay, so keep watching out for more from Zummit Africa. And eventually we'll have Zummit Ghana, our own version of Zummit Africa, right?
Oh, that's great, Daniel. Thank you. So I saw a question from Hillary. Are there practical practices for Africans to combat bias in AI against it because of lack of data readily available? Well, that's the reason for webinars like this, to put on the know and start creating our own data set and preparing intentionally towards solving this problem. There is always a data bias because the data sets, everything are down there. You go to Google Cloud Platform, BigQuery, you find data from their end, and which does not generalize with Africa. So we need to intentionally start building data centers, collecting data so that we can solve this problem.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jonathan. Thank you so much, guys. Because of time, we'll not be taking other questions. And yes, we're really glad to actually meet you guys. And thank you so much for taking out your weekend and your time to actually jump in and see the impact of AI in Africa. So to this note, we call it the end of the session, and together we will democratize AI in Africa. See you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Bye. Bye.
See you. Bye.
Bye, Mr. Patrick. Bye, Mr. Pravin.
Bye-bye. Have a good one. Bye.
Yeah. Goodbye, Mr. Abraham.
Bye. So thank you for having me.